Summer 2025 saw Fenland on Film visit Railworld Wildlife Haven in Peterborough to document the condition of RTV 31, Britain's Hovertrain. At the time, there was still considerable uncertainty surrounding the future of the vehicle, with a structural assessment expected imminently. 12 months on, Fenland on Film has returned to see what has changed, what work has been undertaken, and what lies ahead. Research Test Vehicle 31 was part of Britain's ambitious Tracked Hovercraft programme of the late 1960s and early 1970s. Rather than travelling on conventional wheels and rails, the Hovertrain was designed to float on a cushion of air above a bespoke concrete trackway, propelled by a linear motor. Projected speeds in excess of 250 miles per hour.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome aboard your Glasgow Hovertrain service. Your 400-mile journey will take 1 hour and 30 minutes. Refreshments will be served shortly.
Here, in the Fens, the early prototype was tested along the experimental track alongside the Ouse Washes between Earith and Sutton. But the project was ultimately abandoned, and RTV 31 discarded. Today, it's one of the few surviving pieces of the Tracked Hovercraft legacy. Preserving it is no small task, and far from a simple one. When Fenland on Film visited Railworld last year, RTV 31 remained in place on the concrete track beam, whilst the exterior panels were being removed. Railworld had previously suggested the vehicle would be removed from the concrete beam by the winter of 2025. This was subsequently revised to the spring of 2026. Despite this, RTV 31 still remains, but progress has been made. Dismantling of the vehicle has now been completed, as far as is needed to allow the next stage of removal and preservation work to take place. Most of the aluminium side panels, the distinctive fiberglass nose, and midsection have been separated and lowered. Inside the vehicle, various components have already been removed. These are being retained and stored on site. The rear portion of the Hovertrain has been moved forward slightly along the track beam, facilitated by wooden rollers. In addition to this, work has been undertaken to strengthen the structural integrity of what remains, while a new support structure is being fabricated on site. Work on this has now reached an advanced stage. At this time, Railworld's intention appears to be to preserve and display as much of RTV 31 as possible, repurposing it as a kind of walk-in exhibit, complete with project artefacts, archive material, and film footage on display. The next step is expected in September this year, when the remaining sections of RTV 31 are anticipated to be lifted clear of the beam. This will be a significant moment. The first time in 30 years that the Hovertrain will be lifted. The operation will require specialist equipment and expert oversight by external contractors, while much of the preparation and conservation work has been carried out in-house by Railworld volunteers. The concrete track beam itself is not being preserved as part of the final display. Once the vehicle has been removed, the beam will be broken up in situ. But preserving RTV 31's legacy is about much more than just the physical vehicle and track. The history of Britain's Hovertrain also survives in photographs, documents, technical material, physical artefacts, original film, and in the memories of the people who were involved. Over the years, the physical material has become scattered. As part of Fenland on Film's involvement with RTV 31, it has been working to locate, secure, and preserve as much material as possible. This has meant establishing what survives, identifying where material exists, arranging for it to be brought together, and finding appropriate ways of preserving it for the future. It hasn't always been straightforward. Of one particular collection, sourced from the Hovercraft Museum at Lyon-le-Saulent, it is estimated that only around 20% reached its intended destination at Railworld in 2018. The remainder was subsequently found elsewhere, including material that had been stored somewhat unconventionally for a number of years in an outbuilding at a private residence, among other areas therein. This collection is now under the stewardship of Fenland on Film, as designated by Railworld. Much of it had not been formally catalogued, and the original file and folder structure has been lost, making the task of establishing what survives and where it belongs within the collection considerably more difficult. Some items are currently missing altogether. Despite this, Through Fenland on Film's perseverance, an estimated 90% of the known collection has now been recovered, with efforts continuing to locate and secure the return of what remains. Not only that, but the project has been able to add previously unidentified or separately held material to the collection, including, but not limited to, the only known operating manual believed to survive and original large-scale drawings. These aren't just bits of paper, old photographs or fading pieces of film. Together they form a unique, original historical record of one of Britain's most ambitious attempts to reinvent rail transport. Among the most important material being preserved is some of the original 35mm film footage, which, like the rest of the collection, is now more than 50 years old. Film is perhaps the most vulnerable to the passage of time. It deteriorates with age. It can fade, shrink, become brittle, and eventually become impossible to retrieve anything from. Professional scanning at the earliest opportunity therefore provides a way of preserving the information contained within the original film, while reducing the need to repeatedly handle the surviving material. Over at Pinewood Studios, the remainder of a known quantity of film footage is currently in the expert and industry-leading hands of Kodak and Digital Orchard, while they undertake preparation, cleaning, and digital scanning for preservation. In many ways, Fenland on Film has found itself occupying a role somewhere between Filmmaker, Archivist, and Custodian. Not simply documenting what happened in the past, but trying to make sure that the evidence of what happened survives. This is of particular importance with RTV 31. The vehicle is the most obvious surviving reminder of Britain's Hovertrain experiment. But without the photographs, drawings, documents, film, and personal recollections surrounding it, much of its story would eventually be lost. This isn't just about saving an old relic. RTV 31 represents a moment in British engineering excellence. It was pioneering, pushing boundaries. Alongside the engineering, it represents experimentation, ambition, and passion, all directed towards a future that ultimately never materialised for Britain. But we came close, and that story deserves to be told.
We were all sort of one big team together.
You were doing something new, it had never been done before.
It's quite an experience.
We were not the most popular of people.
No, I didn't feel optimistic about its chances.
It should have been a success.
It was never meant to last.
Well, I suppose the best way to explain it is to demonstrate it. The linear electric motor is a very simple idea. It's just an ordinary electric motor which has been unrolled.
Looking ahead to the future, we can expect to find hover rail trains like this, skimming high and fast above cities, linking city centres to airports.
Everybody was for the project and the morale was really high.
Every step we made was a great step of advancement.
The one test run that sticks out in my mind, of course, was 104 mile an hour.